I mean, listen, man, you just keep banging the Cardinals. You just keep banging
Love to
them.
hear it. I can't be the guy that says that, or people are going to call me a homer. So I'm glad that you're here to do it. We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by FanDuel. Week 5, games of the week, DFS stacks, and best bets. Pack show, as always, today with Reeves, but you're going to want to stick around until the end because we're going to build a FanDuel team live. That team will be in the Listener League at FanDuel.com/Holka, so make sure you get in there before it fills. You guys know the drill at this point. $5, 3-entry max, rake free. Say it every single week. One of the best tournaments in all of DFS. We review this on stream every Monday. All I ask in return is that if you're a new player, maybe it's been a while since you played on FanDuel, that you support the show by restarting that journey at FanDuel.com/Holka. Pumped to have this man back with us on the Joe Holka Show. Rich Hribar, you guys know him from Sharp Football Analysis, the worksheet on Twitter at Lord Reeves. How we doing, buddy?
No, what has happened, brother? I look forward to this every week. Hopefully we have some better luck this week. I sabotaged my own lineup after the week after George.
Oh yeah, I haven't looked at the swap yet. How did that land for you? No guess cashed last week, so it wasn't the worst thing.
We do not need to look at it.
Okay, we won't look at it. It's the forward-thinking show anyway. I'm with you.
Yeah, I had Terry McLaurin in that original lineup, and then he was the guy I swapped around to get more finagling. Because I was worried about Kittle not playing, and you were going to be in Foxborough. How was Foxborough?
Mm-hmm. It was fun, man. It was nice to get out there. Weird Sunday, I guess. The routine was definitely off, but got to hang out during the day, watch some football, and then go to the night game. Probably the best. I've talked about it a couple of times now, but one of the best main slates I've had the entire year. Just absolutely smashed with
awesome.
Tyreek Hill stack, but gave a bunch of it back since Tom Brady decided to just not throw a touchdown pass the whole game. So that was rough.
I hope he kept some of it.
Kept a little bit of it, but it always stings, man, when you have a really good day and then you just piss it all away at the night game, man. That's the way she goes. But yeah, man, how was your week overall besides the Listener League?
No, man, it was an outright disaster. I mean, I had Tyreek Hill too, and I always play Chiefs stacks like everybody, but I just didn't have the right run backs. I was in on Terry McLaurin too. I was just a piece or two away, kind of everywhere.
All right. Well, like I said, it is a forward-thinking show. So let's get right into game number 1. We have Tennessee at Jacksonville. The Titans are 4.5-point road favorites per FanDuel Sportsbook. The total's at 48.5. Not a ton of sharp action on this one, but the public is pretty heavy on Tennessee. So what are your thoughts on this one, Reeves?
Yeah, this is a fun main slate. I'm sure you've talked about it a lot, with not having the Chiefs, not having the Bills, not having the Ravens.
It's weird, right? There's not that massive total or even team total that really stands out, right? It's weird.
Yeah, granted it is a new season and things are different. I mean, these two teams played in 2 pretty high scoring games last year. So it gives us kind of an interesting kind of dynamic here for this game to potentially be like a sneaky go over game. It also has a lot of, I think, game theory elements of it as well. Because obviously we have the big dog. The war horse is out of the gates already. He's got 127 touches already in 4 games. That's the 4th most.
It's not even November yet. I was told I'm supposed to wait until November to play Derrick Henry. What's the deal?
No snow tires required for the big dog yet. He is out here just gobbling up every touch he can. He's the first player since 2014 to have 30 or more touches in 3 straight games. He is just getting fed, and he is going to face a Jaguars team as a home favorite. So this price is warranted that he has at the top billing. But also, I think the other pieces are kind of fun around him. Listen, we can talk about Derrick Henry, why he's a great play. He's a great play, okay? Derrick Henry's a great play. But we also have a situation where he's clear-cut the best running back. We might get Christian McCaffrey on the board to kind of combat him because no one's going to want to play Dalvin Cook because we don't know what's going on with Dalvin Cook. He's basically come out and said he's not healthy. So maybe you get a little tournament leverage there and you hope he hits. But, he's going to be a risky play. So it's going to be a popular Derrick Henry week. And whenever it's a really popular Derrick Henry week, we get some interesting stacks around him. We haven't had the Tannehill spike week yet. He's had 2 kind of decent games the last 2 weeks, nothing amazing. And considering what he had to work with last week, it was a pretty positive fantasy game. He's facing a Jaguars team that is allowing 18.3 passing points per game. That's 26th in the NFL. They're 27th in passing points allowed per attempt. And it looks like he's going to get Arthur Juan back this week, who has already practiced Wednesday. And today, this is Thursday. So it looks like he's going to be back after missing last week and basically all of week 3. So that helps against this Jaguar secondary that's just been getting roasted the entire season. So you have an interesting counter stack if you want to get on the Tennessee side and maybe try to run into one of these games where it actually hits. And I think the other side, the run back, is interesting as well. I think Trevor Lawrence is a very interesting play at 6,500 this week. He's been running the last 2 weeks. We saw him. He's coming off the best game that he had in his early, very early career. He had 17.8 fantasy points last week, and that was without a passing touchdown. And we always like to play guys against the Titans. They even let the Jets guys get there last week. The Jets didn't even score a touchdown the previous 2 games, and they got there for 3. So hey, now we got a Jags team that's at least provided some fleeting moments for us. So I think 6,500 for Trevor Lawrence is pretty interesting. He's a natural kind of run back. You can pair him with the big dog, and you've got all the money. If you want to play James Robinson, he's been kind of elevated now through the process of all the injuries that have happened to the running backs in the NFL,
right.
and then the injuries on his own team. So I mean he's already a guy that he's gotten over 20 fantasy points the past 2 weeks. He's an interesting play in this one. And then you've got the DJ Chark injury potentially elevating Laviska Shenault at 5,800.
So cheap. He is so cheap, man. 5,800 for Viska without Chark is, I think, the standout play in this game at like price point, I think, for sure.
Yeah, 37% team target share last week. It was by far a season high. He also had a season high 13.4 average depth of target. It's kind of hard to say how sticky that will be. The one long pass he caught was kind of on a busted play. But the coordinators and staff has already come out and said he is going to have an extended role. And he already is a guy that had 7 targets in other games this season, too. So he's already involved. He's getting a little bit of growth. And then we've talked about the Tennessee Titans defense. I mean, they are giving up they're the worst NFL defense against deep balls, against throws over 20 yards downfield. So we're going to get a chance for Marv after his low target share week. He had just a 15.8% team target share last week. That was by far a season low. He had scored a touchdown, the first 3 games. So we've got a shot to kind of get him as a bounce back too. So I do think there's some interesting plays in this game. And even if you want to punt, I don't know if you're as brave to do it, but it was encouraging that they just basically acquired Dan Arnold like days before last Thursday, and he ran 12 routes on 18 snaps as a punt for being able to pair a guy with Lawrence as well. So I do think there's a lot of interesting plays all around this game outside of the natural gravitation towards the big dog.
Yeah, I like the Jacksonville side specifically with the big dog lineups, because I feel like we've talked about this ad nauseum. But for anyone that's new to the show, like when Derrick Henry has those big games, a lot of times it is those close games where it goes back and forth and he scores on these huge runs, which completely flips the game to the other side, and it just it paces basically the entire game up from that point. So we've seen some of these Tennessee games shoot out, and Jacksonville, a lot of these guys are just underpriced. Let's expand quickly on James Robinson though, because he's 7,400. I think I don't want to get in the trap of he's back from the volume perspective, but not last week, but the week before he had 6 targets and he had 18 carries and 15 carries. I mean, so it seems like the volume is at least going in the right direction for Robinson, but now his price is to a point where it makes me a little bit squeamish at 7,400. But what do you think about him?
Yeah, I think he's kind of a guy that it could go 2 ways. There's definitely a floor here because Carlos Hyde didn't play last week and he played a season high 95% of the snaps. He had 91% of the backfield touches, which was 2020 James Robinson. Now if Hyde comes back and it throws just a little bit of concern in there. Just the snaps come down. He does have an edge in the passing route, so it's a trail situation. We saw that against Arizona where he gets those targets. I mean, there is a little floor here, though. I don't think I'm with you. I'm not ready to say he's locked in as a top play. And there's some fragility here as a road dog. But also there's still a chance now that it could just be a turning point to where he ends up being an over 8K running or an 8K running back the rest of the way too. If he strings another one of these together.
That's true. I'll say this from a stacking perspective. I like the Marvin Jones call a lot, but we talked about it with Matt Harmon on the wide receiver video. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely do that next. But Laviska Shenault could be one of those guys that we see get a different type of role now as well. Maybe we do see him down the field a little bit more than we have so far this year. So I like Viska quite a bit with Lawrence. And I think that Dan Arnold is kind of an interesting guy to add to that stack. We always kind of talk about adding the tight end to your stacks whenever possible, just to make sure that you get that out of the way. So let's go ahead and move on to the next game, Reeves. It is Green Bay at Cincinnati, 3-point road favorites, 51-point over-under per FanDuel Sportsbook. Looks like an under is getting a little bit of sharp love here, 34% of the bets, 74% of the money. What are your thoughts on this one, Reeves?
Yeah, I can see how that is. I mean, both these teams do play slow, but we did see the Bengals on Thursday kind of change their stripes a little bit. They were 31st in the NFL in passing rate below expectation through 3 weeks. They were top 5 in week 4. Now they lose Joe Mixon. We're assuming Joe Mixon is going to be out. It is only Thursday, so make sure you check. But he has the same injury that Dalvin Cook had, so I'm assuming he's going to at least miss this week. And, the staff has already come out and say that there's going to be probably Bill Callahan came out and said there's basically going to be a committee between Samaje Perine and Chris Evans. But removing Joe Mixon from the offense and being underdogs probably gives them a little more incentive to kind of throw the football a little bit more. And they also get T. Higgins back. And also, the Packers secondary is completely banged up. I mean, Jay Alexander, if he plays in this game, is going to play with a harness. Doesn't sound, that doesn't sound good. I mean, you can still run around and cover guys, but being an NFL player playing with a harness on your shoulder is not really optimal. So I mean, I think that it does set up well for the Bengals here to have a little more passing volume. And Joe Burrow has been excellent, especially, from a clean pocket. He's been awesome, and the Packers do not really rush the passer. And he's had one hiccup. The Bears game throws like one little bit like a fly in the ointment, but he's thrown for 9.6 yards per pass attempt in his other 3 games or more. And the Packers are 22nd in passing points allowed per game right now, and they face Jared Goff, Jameis Winston, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Ben Roethlisberger. They haven't faced nobody, and they're still a bottom pass unit. So, I mean, I like the upside here for Burrow. He's probably not going to be a guy that's, I don't think, super popular because he's not running, and I think that was probably to be expected coming off the ACL injury. He just has 13 total rushing yards. I do think the passing volume will be here. I do think that the Packers secondary being banged up and then the full assortment of passing weapons paired with losing Joe Mixon does lean to a lot of, passing volume potentially for the Bengals against a bad defense, which is always intriguing. And we always know the Packers can score points too, although they do it slowly. They can do it efficiently, though. It hasn't really happened so far to start this season, but it looks like Eldon Jenkins, he's practicing today, so he's going to be back. A big problem for Rodgers to start the year, Aaron Rodgers, is that he's been really bad under pressure. This offensive line's been banged up. David Bakhtiari's on the PUP. They lose Corey Linsley to the Chargers in free agency. Jenkins has missed the last 2 games. He's thrown for just 5.3 yards per attempt under pressure, but he's thrown for 8 yards per attempt when kept clean. The Bengals are 24th in pressure rate. They are also another team that really haven't faced like a slate of really good quarterbacks. They allowed 350 passing yards to Kirk Cousins in week 1. Then they come back and face Andy Dalton in that Justin Fields game where both guys have to play. They face Ben Roethlisberger the next week when Steven Ruiz is making like a old-timey video of Ben Roethlisberger looking like he's never played the position before. And then last week they come out and Trevor Lawrence really kind of gaslit them, 8.5 yards per pass attempt. They will have Jesse Bates here, but they've been kind of a pretty uneven defense. They're not really rushing the passer. So it does set up for, I think, Rodgers to have one of his better outlooks to start the season because that mismatch offensive line just faced the Steelers defensive front and just faced the 49ers defensive front, which are good defensive fronts. So I think he's going to be a lot cleaner this game. We'll have to keep earmarked on Aaron Jones. He's dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury because of that offensive line play. I mean, you look at him right now, he's not been efficient running the football. He's had just one game where he's run for over 4 yards per carry. By far, it has been his least inefficient season on the ground. It's only 4 games in to start the season, but just something to keep in mind with the state of this offensive line. The Bengals have been kind of vulnerable to running backs. We just talked about James Robinson. He had 2 tuds on them last week. They've also had 13 receiving points per game to running back. That's 23rd in the NFL. And Aaron Jones, albeit while he's struggled on the ground a little bit, he is 12th among all running backs in route participation. So he's been used in the passing game to kind of get over that way. And then, we know what to do with Davante Adams. Last 3 games, 30% target share, 58% target share, 31% target share. He's yet to really kind of get off. Just 1 touchdown. Touchdown regression comes for everybody. He started with just 1, but we know that he's still a guy that's capable of getting a lot of targets and finding the end zone multiple times. And when you look at the receiver position on the slate, it's him, Justin Jefferson, and a divide.
Right.
We don't have Tyreek, we don't have Diggs, we don't have DK Metcalf, we don't have Cooper Kupp. They're not here. So I think a lot of people, with the way that salaries are spread out this week, are going to be able to get up to Davante Adams.
Yeah, I've got my Tim the Tap Man hoodie on right now, FanDuel guy. Obviously, another FanDuel guy is Pat McAfee. Talks to Rodgers every single week on his show, so it's always nice. I enjoy listening to it just because you kind of get a little bit of a peek beneath the hood. But one of the things that he talked about last week is that they basically just sold out to take Davante Adams out of the game, even though he ended up getting a decent amount of targets, 11 targets. I still love these spots to go back to Adams the week after he kind of flops for everyone because Rodgers Rodgers is going to get him his, and especially if the game plan specifically last week was just to take him away. I think it's a good spot to go back to Adams. He's expensive. He's 8,200, but like you said, there's not really a lot of guys that we're paying up for anyways in this slate. So Reeves, I forgot to do it in the last game, so I'm going to do this one. Your best bet in this game, and then if you are stacking it up, what do you prefer? Which side?
Yeah, I mein in the first game too, I like that game to sneakily go over. I don't know if I believe this one will go over or not. I think the Bengals are live, as a home dog. And then we didn't even talk about the Bengals receivers, but I mean, yeah, obviously, I think salary makes me a little bit lean towards Burrow, but you don't have to have the salary. I think both guys are stackable. And I don't think that this game is going to be really popular from a quarterback stance. If you want to stack this game, I don't think Rodgers or Burrow will be particularly popular. So I think you can go either way, but obviously it's easier to stack Rodgers because it's one guy. As with Burrow, you're gonna have to choose. You've got Chase, you've got Higgins, you've got Boyd. Chase has been the big play guy, and he's been a guy that's had a high target share in 3 of the games, and he's been at 95% of team dropbacks. Higgins more of like the guy that can save a bad game with a touchdown, but has upside as well. And then Boyd's more of he's not super conducive to the scoring site for FanDuel, but he has been peppered with targets with Higgins out of the game the last 2 weeks, so it's a little trickier to stack him, but we'll figure out what we're going to do. I have a feeling we're going to do either a Lawrence stack or a Burrow stack when we get there.
I like it. Here's the thing, guys. By this point, Reeves has spewed a ton of knowledge. I know I've already got your like on this video, but looking at the back end, I know that only 10% of you guys watching this specific video have already hit that notification bell, so you're not going to get it when this video goes live if you don't do that. So let's correct that. Game number 3, the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are 7-point home favorites in this one with a 52-point over-under per FanDuel Sportsbook. Reeves, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this one will be popular on this slate. We had 2 games that may be not popular. They may still end up being popular. It's only Thursday, but I think this will be the most popular game. This and the 49ers game, especially if Lance ends up starting. But the Cowboys are just out of the gates, just rocking. I mean, Kellen Moore is just in his bag right now, doing whatever he needs to do based on whatever opponent he's facing. He's just had everything dialed up, every week so far this season. They are starting to, you lose Michael Gallup, but they face 3 teams in a row that really kind of acquiesce to saying like, hey, we'll let you run the football. We're just not going to let you beat us over the top. And we've seen that, Dak's only thrown for 240 yards or fewer in all 3 games. But he's at the last 2 games, he has a 15% touchdown rate. Like it's hard to live on 240 yards and a 15% touchdown rate. But they are facing a Giants team that's been a little more neutral in terms of approach. 68% of the yardage allowed by the Giants has been via passing. That's only 16th in the NFL, but the past 3 teams that the Cowboys faced, even prior to facing the Cowboys, were bottom 5 in that category. So it does allow probably a little bit of more of a neutral approach here, where it's just not the run heavy, let Dak live off of efficiency type of games. Although the Giants are kind of a defense too that don't really have like a clear strength. They are allowing 3.5 more points per game than the opponent's average coming into the game, and they've faced Teddy Bridgewater, Jameis Winston, Taylor Heineke, and Matt Ryan as part of the sample. I mean, you got a guy like Dak Prescott. This is multiple tiers above everyone that we just named. So I believe Dak will be pretty popular. I think people will look on the other side too as well. The cool thing about this game is you can stack it both ways because you have the running back element. You can do Dak and Dallas pass catchers with Saquon, or you can do Daniel Jones and pass catchers with Ezekiel Elliott. You can kind of go which way you want to match it. Daniel Jones coming off of the best game of his career, really. 10 flat yards per pass attempt, 402 yards is a career high. He did run hot. He was 10.3% completion rate over expectation. That was the second highest rate of any quarterbacks last week. He's also run for 27 or more yards in every game this season. So you're getting that little sprinkle of Konami with Daniel Jones. The Cowboys are still giving up a lot of passing points. I mean, this defense gets a lot of turnovers, but they still give up a lot of yards. They're allowing 18.4 passing points per game. That's 27th in the NFL. They've allowed QB1 scoring weeks to Brady, Jalen Hurts, and Sam Darnold last week. They've allowed 300 passing yards in all 4 games. So
wow.
They're still giving up yardage. So I think Daniel Jones will be, probably the most popular streamer, ancillary run back, kind of unique stack to get at this game as well. It looks like Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton still will be held out another week. So you got Kenny Golladay coming off of his best game of the season. He played a season high 92% of the snaps. He had 116 yards against a good cornerback. See, a lot of people will talk about Trayvon Diggs. He's got the 5 turnovers. We love the 5 turnovers, right? He's just absolutely killing it. But he also has still allowed the 5th most yardage in his coverage this season on the year, and he's allowing 18.6 yards per completion on his 14 completions allowed. So there is some volatility with Kenny Golladay, but also splash play ability too, even if Trayvon Diggs is going to be on him. We also seen them, actually incorporate Kadarious Toney effectively into the game plan. It was something, who knew Jason Garrett was capable of doing, right? To have this unique weapon and use him effectively. And I think the key to that is that they actually just used him as a regular wide receiver, really. Instead of the first kind of early in the season, he'd come in for a gadget play or a jet sweep. They just let him play in the slot and got him some touches. And he was really effective. He had 5 forced missed tackles last week as a wide receiver, wow. By far the most in the NFL. So, he looked electric. I don't know if he's like super great for this type of scoring, but he's affordable, and he's going to be in a game where we may be able to protect Daniel Jones for another 300-yard passing game. And then, Saquon's just been, getting better and healthier every week. Snaps have gone up every week. He's getting targeted in the passing game, which we love. 7 targets 2 weeks ago, 6 targets last week. They split him out wide. He gets a vertical target. His price still hasn't kind of caught up to where I think we'll inevitably get there with Saquon. And on a slate like this, you could take advantage of it where it's not clear top running back plays. And on the Dallas side, like I said, I think it'll be more split this week. So the thing is, like, Dalton Shultz is going to be really popular because the Giants have allowed a tight end touchdown in every game this season, but they've only allowed 1 high-scoring tight end week. So they're allowing all these ancillary tight ends to score touchdowns. Albert O scored. Noah Fant scored a touchdown, or Noah Fant didn't score. It was Albert O, actually. But it's all like these backup tight ends that are scoring on them. Juwan Johnson last week scored on them. But the thing about it is, you want to bet on Dalton Shultz is you have to bet on this target tree completely be skewed in his direction. He's had 28% and 36% of the team targets the last 2 games. How sticky do we think that's going to be over the big course season? How often do we think that Amari Cooper is going to have 13 and 16% target shares, and CeeDee Lamb's going to have 12 and 22% team target shares, and Dalton Schultz is going to get 30% each week? Right. The long bet. I'm going to bet on the 2 players that are objectively better at football, kind of coming back and being part of the game plans. CeeDee Lamb is really cheap on FanDuel. Yeah. And Amari's a little banged up too, and you saw him leave the game a little bit with an ankle. He's been dealing with some things kind of off and on all preseason into the season. So I do think that Lamb's price, I think he's 6,800. Super cheap. Yeah, I think that's really good. You look at the Giants; they've allowed the highest catch rate to opposing wide receivers, 74%. They're just kind of getting by a lot of touchdowns to wide receivers. We talked about those jabroni tight ends keep getting in the box on them. But they've allowed 8.0 yards per target to wide receivers too as well. So I do think there is going to be some oscillation where these Cowboys wide receivers start to get actual targets in games. And it's not going to be the Dalton Schultz show every week. But this game, like I said, will be the most popular, I think, of this main slate.
Yeah, I love the CD call. There's a lot there to unpack, obviously, but I think that Dalton Schultz is one that I personally feel like it's a little bit of fool's gold. So, like, anytime we get CeeDee Lamb, he's 6,900. I wanted to double check that. He's just way too cheap. I understand that the volume hasn't really been there, but I think we need to skew towards the talent for a guy like that for sure. So I'm with you on that. And I don't really know where the ownership's going to land on Schultz, but you're right. I think this game's going to be popular, so you never know. I'm curious your thoughts on Zeke, though, because we've seen his passing game usage kind of just be deferred a little bit to Tony Pollard at times, and this is a game that they should control in theory, so maybe it is a Zeke game in that regard. So I'm curious your thoughts on his usage. It does look like, he's going to be a staple of this offense, of course, but I guess the usage in the passing game is scaring me a little bit.
Yeah, it is. So I was really high on, Zeke to have a bounce back this year because of the touchdowns. He ran really cold in the touchdown department. Last year, he only scored on 5 of his 22 touches inside the 5-yard line. And he's already converted 3 of 4 to start this year. I thought he had a real good chance to lead all running backs in touchdowns. But I'm very nervous about, like you said, the receiving work. 7 catches, and he's out here running routes. Like he's very involved in the passing game from a routes run perspective. He's just not getting targeted. And you worry about that from the stance especially in DFS, because if you run into one of these games where the touchdown variance doesn't swing your way, he doesn't get in the end zone, we're not getting any catches now. And There's nothing so then you're getting 90 to 110 rushing yards with 2 or 3 catches, and that's Nick Chubb. That's and that's kind of a bummer here. I think his price has been really good so far to start, at least, though. He probably could be a little higher, and they haven't really jammed him up. But if you keep scoring touchdowns, you're going to keep getting over. The Pollard stuff, Pollard's not really. He's not out here running around. So Pollard's run a route on 21% of team dropbacks, which is actually below Trey Sermon. And Trey Sermon's only played 2 games. Yeah. So It's still, they haven't really, like, Zeke's not losing the passing work to Pollard. It's just
Oh, you're
not even
right.
coming to him
I
at
was
all.
looking at 2 games before that. He had like 3 and 4 targets. But yeah, you're right. He's got 1 target in the last 2 weeks. What the hell am I talking about? Good call. He's good call out on that one. Just don't listen to my bullshit sometimes.
Well, who knows? Maybe they swing back to it and you do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fantasy football, man. You never
Yeah.
know what the game plan will call. But the targets have been like kind of just going. Like Schultz has been sucking all those little intermediate targets up, and like I said, they really just haven't been pressed to throw the football because of the game plans of the opponents they faced, 2 the game scripts that they've been in, and like I said, Kellen Moore's just been in his bag. I do think it'll be a little more neutral this week because if it's not, like, we can't live this way on Dak Prescott. Like, as great as he's been, and he's been phenomenal, pre-snap and post-snap, just as good as any other quarterback. But 15% touchdown rate, ain't nobody doing that over the course of the season. So
Right.
like, we need more passing volume for Dak, and I think we'll get it. It's just the way these games have kind of played out and the opponents that they faced. I think that will be a little more neutral. We do need the Giants to punch back, but like I said, this Dallas defense is still getting by on just cachet of turnovers. Like, they keep just getting turnovers every week, but they're giving up yards. And they're giving up yards regularly. So even if they get some turnovers, I still think we'll see the Giants. And that only helps us, right? Like, if the Giants have a couple turnovers, it only puts them in more game script to where they're pressed to do what the Panthers had to do last week.
Yeah, it sucks, man, because I think my only team that just had a Tyreek Hill one-off, I had the Mahomes stack that did pretty well in small field, but I had a one-off Tyreek Hill team with a super low-owned Dallas stack, so I was like really pumped, honestly, even before Tyreek started going nuts, and then it just basically fizzled out. So I think I got like dead last in that tournament with my Dak stack. So yeah, I'm with you. Hopefully we get a little bit more passing volume in that spot. Do you like a bet in this game, Reeves?
Let's see, where are we at? I mean, it's got a moderately high total, but I think it could get there. It's 51, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it could definitely get there. I could definitely see the Giants being live as a dog, but I mean, I went that route with the Panthers, and they boned me the second half last week. I mean, I think it could definitely get over. I think the Cowboys are going to throw more this week than they have the past 2 weeks, so
I like
we'll
that.
go there.
I like that. We've got a couple extra minutes here. I know you said there was one other game that you wanted to touch on quickly with Arizona and San Francisco. You're right, though, because this slate, without some of the heavy hitters, it gives us a little bit more time to talk about some teams that we don't necessarily include. So I guess we still have to figure out the quarterback situation in San Francisco and all of that. But is this going to be another slate where Arizona goes under-owned? Because it seems like almost every week, no one wants to pay up for Kyler in this offense. So this one's really interesting.
Yeah, very well, it could be. I mean, they are definitely the crown jewel of, fantasy football right now because they're the only team that has 400 yards from scrimmage in every game. It's the first time in franchise history they've done that, their first 4 games, and the first time since the 2013 Broncos. They're also the only team in the NFL that's hit their implied team total every week of the season so far, which we always like. We always love that. I mean, I think more people are just like, they don't know who to pair Kyler with, so they're avoiding him, but like, we talked about naked Kyler last week, and Hodge dunked on us, but he is kind of getting tougher to stack correctly, especially if they're going to start giving touchdowns to James Conner every week.
Right.
We don't want that. But the 49ers defense under D'Amico Ryans is still operated under the same approach that it did under Robert Slaw, where they're playing a lot of they don't really blitz, and they play a lot of quarters coverage. And that has been conducive to, running quarterbacks really kind of giving them problems. We saw Jalen Hurts had 82 rushing yards against them. Russell Wilson had 26 rushing yards and a touchdown. Russ doesn't really run a lot these days, but it was a nice touchdown run to Akon. And Kyler, he's played 4 games against the 49ers, and he's had 34, 67, 91, and 75 rushing yards against them. So you get a little bit of that rushing bonus at Kyler. We said their offense has been on fire. The 49ers secondary is still, not something that is really kind of pushing us off attacking with anybody. It just comes down to who you want to run it back with. The DeAndre Hopkins stuff is interesting because he is now second in the NFL in terms of routes run per team dropback, just behind Terry McLaurin in the NFL. He just has had more target competition. I mean, at this point last year, he had 45 targets, and the next closest guy, Larry Fitzgerald, just had 18. Now he leads the team in targets at just 25, but it's just one difference than AJ Green. So he's playing a lot. The targets just haven't found him. He has played some of the games hurt, but also, I mean, if you look at how DeAndre Hopkins operated last year, he was a guy, when you looked at his depth of target and how he produced per reception, he was a guy that you could have earmarked and said, well, if the volume does dry up here a little bit, like, he might be kind of a guy that doesn't really give us a lot of full return because he's not getting a high yards per catch, and he doesn't have a high ADOT compared to his wide receiver one alpha peers, and that has also played out. So it's kind of tricky to navigate what to do with DeAndre Hopkins' big picture. But he's an elite player, an elite talent though that we still know is out there, an elite passing offense the full game, and that's not what we have with the other guys, the whack-a-moles. Yeah, AJ Green is next at target route participation at 88%. Then Christian Kirk goes down to 74%, and then Rondale Moore has run just 14 and 15 pass routes the past 2 weeks when everyone wanted to get back. Yeah, and it's definitely an underutilization. And the Cardinals really haven't been pressed on the scoreboard in any of these games either. I mean, Minnesota gave them a good game in the second half, but they've kind of coasted through here. They even coasted against the Rams last week. So, I mean, we need the 49ers to punch back, and if we have Trey Lance starting instead of Jimmy Garoppolo, there's a wide variance of what's going to happen. I think Trey Lance will be a semi-popular play. I don't think people will be all in like they would have in past because of what happened to Justin Fields a couple weeks ago.
Right.
But I do think that Trey Lance is in better hands. Remember Trey Lance, he did not look good in this game. Now, he still had 20 fantasy points. He did not play well in this game. He completed just half of his passes. He was 17% below expected completion rate. It was the second largest differential among all passers last week. He had a busted play coverage, but the points still got there. And remember, though, he came in at halftime of a game that they had no plans of playing him.
True.
If there's a full install for him this week and he's part of the plans, I don't think that we'll see more like RPOs. We'll see more QB runs. We'll see him in a better spot. And I think he's in a better coaching staff situation than what we saw with Justin Fields 2 weeks ago when he faced the Browns in his first start. So I would give him a little more faith. Also, he's one of these guys that is going to run, man. Like, it's not going to be a situation where they're going to hide his running if he has to play. So it'll be interesting to see where his projected ownership kind of comes in. He's a guy I would definitely monitor throughout the weekend. I think if he comes light, it makes it real interesting to throw him into games. He's so cheap. But like I mentioned, I think Trevor Lawrence is a really good pivot at his price point on FanDuel as well, if you want to have a little bit to combat that. So the Cardinals have been terrible against the run. So, I mean, it's the one thing the 49ers haven't really been able to do. It's a staple, right? Like, we always count on the 49ers to be able to run the football. And this year, with what's going on in their backfield, they really haven't. So maybe Trey Lance being able to get under center opens things up. They did run it a little bit effectively in the first half last week against Seattle, but then we're kind of scripted out. Trey Sermon didn't have a carry in the fourth quarter because of the situation that they were in. But I mean, can this team pace the scoreboard with this hot Cardinals team? Remains to be seen.
There's one more guy in this game that I kind of like. The more I look into it, is Chase Edmonds. So I think that, like, I'm guilty of this as well. We talk about these running quarterbacks, and we're like, oh, they don't check the ball down. But you look at Chase Edmonds, 5 targets, 8 targets, 5 targets. You know what I mean? So he doesn't really have like that elite usage on the game. And obviously, Connor can always come in and steal those touchdowns, as we've seen. But I do think he's a little bit underpriced on FanDuel at 6,200. If this is a guy that's going to continue to be that involved in the passing game, I do really like Chase Edmonds, maybe just in a bring back if you do want to have, I guess, in this scenario where the game goes crazy and maybe you do get Trey Lance in this one. I kind of like the bring back of Chase Edmonds on the other side versus some of those secondary wide receivers if we're talking stacks. Is there a bet in this game that you like, Reeves, before we move on to lineup builder?
I mean, listen, man, you just keep banging the Cardinals. You just keep banging them.
Hear it. I can't be the guy that says that, or people are going to call me a homer. So I'm glad that you're here to do it, man.
I always forget you're a Cardinals guy, not a Vikings guy.
Yep, not a Vikings guy. That's for sure. All right, so everyone out there, I want you to do one thing. You guys know the drill. Pause this video. Let me know in the comments who your favorite stack is for week 5. Reeves, you ready to build a FanDuel lineup?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this has been a disappointing run. These guys have left the door open for me to run away with this thing, and I have not taken advantage. I'm letting them off the hook.
That's the way she goes, my man. So everyone knows by this point, this team will be in the listener league, fanduel.com/Holka. Make sure you get in there before it fills. $5 rake free, big prizes, everything that you want in a contest structure. This has got it. Lineups from Reeves, Jake Seeley, TJ Hernandez, the battle of the guests. Like you said, they've left the door open for you, Reeves. So you and TJ are tied at the top currently. Jake's slightly behind. So we're going to keep this thing going. Eventually, I'm going to make a graphic, but I just haven't done it yet. So that's on me. But what are we doing here? 2,000 person field size. So normally if it was something a little bit smaller that we talk about, we'd be full on slotting or full stacking. This one, we have a little bit more flexibility to get creative, I think.
Yeah, I think that so far, the first month, I'm looking at these lineups I've built on this show, and they've been maybe a little too popular.
It's tough early in the week, man, because we don't even know a lot of ownership context at this point.
Yeah, I feel like I've gone to ended up with like more popular stacks and it hasn't helped me out. So I'm gonna go with. I mean, do we go? I think I want to go Lance or Burrow. I'm just debating with it because I don't think either guy will get there. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? What is your pulse on it? Do you think anyone's gonna really stack Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence?
I think Lawrence will be the lowest of those guys because we've seen him not play well at times this year. I think that the weapons are underpriced, so maybe I'm wrong there. Burrow is the one that I think is just going to get ignored because I think that if we get Trey Lance, there's enough people that have been excited about Trey Lance that they're going to ignore basically how poorly he just looked. Like they're going to fall into a lot of the stuff we talked about, right? Like coming in the middle of the game for a guy like that. Completely different game plan for Jimmy G than for Trey Lance. So I think that he's going to gain a little bit of steam. I think the lowest is either going to be Lawrence or Burrow, probably, but like you said, like that game with Cincinnati might be popular, so it is very hard on a Thursday. But I would say that Trey Lance probably should stay out of this one just in case he doesn't play. Yeah. All
right, well, let's put Burrow in, and then we have to pick a receiver on these Bengals receivers. I guess we'll go Chase just for the upside factor. If we end up needing salary, we can go down to Higgins.
Okay, I like it
because Chase is, I think, is 73. So we'll go Burrow, Chase, and the natural run back is we'll go Devontae. So we've got our little run
core
back
stack. Let me ask you this. Was there a running back that really stood out to you this week as being like severely underpriced? Like we've talked about a decent amount of these guys. If you want to pay up for the big dog, I think that it's still in play. We don't know if McCaffrey's going to be back, but there's, I guess, a couple guys down here. But I think the last couple weeks has actually been a little bit stronger for this mid-range than it is this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of great plays in the middle this week. I think a lot of people are going to play Lombardi, Lenny. Damian Williams is going to be hyper popular.
True.
I don't think really P. Ryan's going to be popular, especially with Bill Callahan coming out, especially when you can just play Damian Williams for basically the same price. And maybe it's going to be one of those things where Damian Williams gets so much steam that we should have played P. Ryan. We'll see. I mean, maybe not, but I'm not excited to play P. Ryan at any level. So I don't know if I'm going to go there. But Damian Williams, I think, will be really popular. I think Lenny's 64. I think Saquon's price is just. I think Saquon's going to end up on FanDuel being a 9K running back for at some point this year. So let's put him in. Let's just do it. So we'll line. He's 78.
What do you think about like a Saquon CeeDee Lamb mini stack or something like that? I don't know if we'll have salary for that, but maybe. Let's just put it in there for now. We're gonna have to get probably really cheap at defense. So let's do
Saquon Lamb, and then that gives us our three receivers. We got Lamb, Chase, Adams, which I feel good about those guys. Like
a couple alphas.
And we've got Saquon, so we need a tight end defense. I know you always make me. It's
just nice to get a play. You can upgrade your defense whenever you want. It's just nice to get an idea of where we're at because as of right now, we need some salary saving options for sure. So we have the Giants all the way. We have Detroit at Minnesota. We've got New England at Houston. Man, it's really not. I guess Jacksonville, if you wanted to attack Ryan Tannehill without many weapons. Cincinnati. There's not a lot to love down here.
Cheapest home favorite is the Chargers.
Looks like it. Yeah, they're 3,700. That's not a bad idea.
Let's just put them in for cheapest home favorite, and we'll see if we need to go up because Baker might get. Listen, if Baker plays like he did last week.
That's true.
If any of you guys played Odell Beckham last week, man, oh my goodness. Yeah. I want to talk about the points that were left on the field by Baker.
Yeah, thankfully, my Baker exposure was also Dalvin Cook in a mini stack, and then I had a Jefferson Chubb team that almost got there. So I got kind of lucky on that game, even though I loved that game. It was looking great for the first drive, and then after that, it just completely stalled out. So yeah, the Odell tilt at least was on a really bad Dalvin Cook team, so not a big deal.
What is that? What are we working with here?
6,300. So that helped a lot, paying down a defense for sure.
All right, we'll see if we need it. The thing is, so we've already rolled out the big dog. The way we've done this, we can't big dog it.
Can't.
What are we doing at RB2? That's the question mark.
We could, if we wanted to eat the chalk on one of these cheaper guys like Fournette or Harris, we probably could.
See, I've played the chalk running back in this tournament. I think all 4 weeks. I think last week I even played Hubbard, and you know what? I haven't gotten there. I want to do. Let's do something different.
Are you with me on the Chase Edmonds stuff? He's 6,200. I don't know how popular he'll get. At least it gives you another guy at 4 p.m. that if you really wanted to pivot away, 6,200. Maybe he's not even cheap enough for this build though. P. Ryan at 56.
Well, let's do this. Let's do tight end first then to see what we got to do. Let's go with Mike Gesicki.
Nice. So this is where it would make sense if you wanted to go Lenny on the other side, probably.
Yeah, so we have the option then. So we'll go Mike Gesicki just because the passing volume, it's obviously a passing script. It's the Bucks.
Yep.
And then Gesicki's been getting the Jacoby Brissett bump. And then also the Bucks also haven't really played good against tight ends at all. I mean,
True.
Tight ends have kind of gotten over on them every week. So we'll get people chasing Schultz and they won't play Gesicki. Although Gesicki I think might be the chalky tight end. Maybe people go down to Evan Ingram and they keep chasing the Evan Ingram boat. We also have Tonyan, but we already played Adams.
True.
So we don't need to do that. Tonyan did have a career high 7 targets last week, even though nothing happened on him. Just something to earmark.
I don't mind Gesicki. I don't think people don't click this guy, man. Even last year when he was like more popular at times, like I don't know what it is, but especially, and we still see Tampa Bay, like people don't want to attack that defense like no matter what. So it's a spot. I think this Gesicki could be really low in this.
All right, let's do Gesicki.
So we got 6,700 the rest of the way. Let's just give you the option. If you go Lenny, you should have a decent amount of salary left for your last spot. So if we go Lenny, apparently doesn't pop up. There we go.
Oh yeah, it's just
7,100.
So 7,100.
That's basically the range of Amari Cooper, Kareem Hunt, Deontay Johnson, Mike Evans, and a lot of injured guys. Essentially, if you wanted to upgrade your defense, you could move down to someone like Marvin Jones. You could move down to someone. You could, I guess, in theory, add Boyd to the stack if you wanted to, and then really upgrade your defense. But it's kind of a weird range.
I can also add Higgins if I wanted to double stack and get cute.
True. I don't mind the double stack.
Just get cute on the Higgins double stack. DeAndre Swift is there too, though.
True. That's true.
DeAndre Swift.
If you went Swift. If you went Swift, you could get your defense up to anyone between Vikings, Washington football team, Carolina. So it doesn't really do a ton for you unless you wanted to go Carolina against Hurts. Interesting.
I want to play a few of these guys actually.
It's tough.
I'll tell you. I think let's bump CD to the flex, and then let's put T Higgins in. Let's go crazy. Let's just run the double stack.
I like it. So we got CD in the flex, and then if he ends up being super chalky, I mean, you could end up pivoting off that if you really wanted to. 400 left on the table.
Actually, you know what? Let's scratch that. Let's put Marvin Jones in.
Marvin Jones over T?
Yeah, let's do Marvin Jones.
All right. Let's do it. 6,600. So yeah, we got 500 left if you wanted to upgrade any of these slots, Reeb. So you could get up significantly at defense. You could probably get off of Fournette at this point if you wanted to, or get all the way up to Green Bay, Cleveland, those type of options at defense. So
those aren't great either.
Not great. Yeah. I don't mind even just like staying with the Chargers at 3,700, honestly.
Yeah. What are we leaving? 5 on the table?
500 on the table. Gives you some flexibility in late swap, though, because then you could move off of CD, and then in theory, you could play someone like Terry McLaurin. You could play someone like James Robinson. Those are both 1 p.m. games, so I'm completely wrong. You could play Darren Waller if you wanted to double tight end it, which I don't do very often. You could get in Keenan Allen if he ends up going low. So there's options, at least, if you wanted to move off of CD and he's chalky if you leave that salary on the table, which I don't hate.
Yeah, and we could also go up to DeAndre Swift instead of Lenny.
It's your team, man. What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's just throw Swift in. Let's throw Swift in instead of Lenny.
All right. So we got CD.
I know we had the correlation stack, but it's a Bucks running back. Who knows what the hell happened?
All right, we got Swift, and then 60.
There's a lot of hem-hawing on that lineup. That one did.
Dude, these are the ones that end up going crazy. Rich Hribar, everybody. Want to make sure everyone remembers that I give away free sports memorabilia every single week. So check out this video right here next so you can see what I pulled from the Week 5 Pristine Auction Mystery Box.